coming today. My name is Nicole Elias. I'm the program manager of the private sector team here at TISL. I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Nadishani Pereira, the executive director of TI Sri Lanka on my left, who will speak in Sinhala after this, and Frederick Winslow, program officer private sector, who will speak in Tamil after this, who is on my right. So we're here to announce the launch of the 2023 Transparency in Corporate Reporting report for the year 2023. So here we have the report. So TRAC actually assesses the level of transparency in corporate reporting, and the 2023 report has assessed the top 125 public limited companies in Sri Lanka based on market capitalization on the Colombo Stock Exchange as of 5th July 2023. The assessment scored and ranked companies on publicly available information in 6 areas crucial to fighting corruption. Firstly, reporting on anti-corruption programs. So this is where we look at if a company has disclosed information on their anti-corruption programs, if they've mentioned that they have a whistleblower policy, a gift and hospitality policy, if the policies are applicable to all employees, directors, suppliers, etc. Secondly, transparency in company holdings. So here's where we look at if companies have disclosed all the information on their subsidiaries, their sub-subsidiaries, associates and joint ventures, looking at the percentages held in each of these companies, and also the countries of incorporation and operations on all of these as well. The third area is disclosure of key financial information in domestic operations. So here is where we look at all the financial information that a company has disclosed on their domestic operations. So we're talking about the company's revenue, the capital expenditure, income before tax, and also looking at a company's community contributions, or what we commonly call CSR projects, corporate social responsibility projects. So the fourth area is reporting on gender and non-discrimination policies. So here is where we look at if a company has disclosed that they do not discriminate based on gender, especially focusing on the recruitment process and promotion process, because here is where we see the tendency for sextortion to occur, which is a particularly difficult form of corruption, where sex or sexual favors is the currency of the corruption instead of the usual, which would be money or some kind of other favor. The fifth area is country by country reporting. So this is the same as domestic financial reporting, but here we check if the company has disclosed information on all their foreign subsidiaries. So the same thing, looking at revenue, capital expenditure, etc. And the final area is reporting on procurement related to government contracts or tenders. So here is an interesting area where we see if the company has disclosed information on if they've actually had any kind of procurement process with whether it's the Sri Lankan government or any foreign governments, and we look at if they've disclosed audited financials on these procurements, etc. So companies were ranked and scored solely on publicly available information, which is sourced from the latest company annual reports. So now, depending on when each company's financial year ends, whether it's December or the March-April timeline, the annual report would be the 2022 report or the 2022/2023 annual report. In addition to this, we've also looked at company websites and other publicly available documents that are published by the companies themselves. So we have also uploaded each company's individual scores and compiled company scores on our website. You can access it now from this link, www.tisrilanka.org/track2023. So the findings of the report, which I'm sure is the part we're all interested to hear about, show that companies received an average score of 5.85 on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is the least transparent in corporate reporting and 10 is fully transparent in corporate reporting. The score shows a slight overall improvement compared to the previous year's assessment, and also the average score in each of the sections I mentioned earlier have also increased. So anti-corruption program section has increased from 3.46 to 4.49. Organizational transparency increased from 7.86 to 8.27. Domestic financial reporting section increased from 9.52 to 9.58, and the section on reporting on gender and non-discrimination policies has increased from 5.13 to 5.94. So TISL has actually been conducting track assessments since 2020 and has continued to do so annually. For the first time this year, there is a five-way tie for first place in transparency in corporate reporting, which means that for the first time, 5 companies have received the highest overall score of 10 out of 10 in the assessment. So John Keells Holdings PLC and TJ Lanka PLC, who ranked first in previous track assessments, are joined this year by, in alphabetical order, Ceylon Tobacco Company, Dialog Axiata Company PLC, and Dilma Ceylon Tea Company PLC, who have all achieved the full score for transparency in corporate reporting. In addition to this, 27 companies are considered significantly transparent in the assessment, which has almost doubled from last year's assessment, which only had 15 companies being deemed significantly transparent. John Keells Holdings PLC has ranked first for the 4th consecutive year, while TJ Lanka PLC has ranked first for the 2nd consecutive year. So, while congratulating the high scorers of the assessment, it's important to note that the track report does not assess the actual implementation of companies' anti-corruption programs. So, therefore, a low score does not necessarily mean that a company does not have a strong anti-corruption program, nor does it necessarily indicate any wrongdoing on the part of the company. So conversely, a high score may not also always reflect operational and implementational success of these anti-corruption programs, but merely reflect strong disclosure mechanisms of the company. So TISL's expectation is that periodic track assessments will encourage companies to improve standards of integrity and transparency in business. The most important objective of this assessment is to encourage companies to incorporate and strengthen anti-corruption practices and to make this information publicly available as well. The scores obtained can be used as a catalyst for continuous improvement, turning disclosure practices into operational norms. So we encourage companies to actually disclose this information for several reasons. Firstly, it allows companies to be socially responsible to the community they operate in. It also helps a company's reputation and brand image, and companies that are more transparent will actually bypass their competitors. So it's in their best interest to be more transparent. Greater transparency can also lead to greater profits for the company, because more investors and even shareholders, stakeholders are focusing on ESG investing, which means that they prefer investing in companies that pay attention to environmental, social, and governance aspects in their operations. So disclosing information on a company's anti-corruption efforts will lead to greater profits due to these greater investments as well. So actually, one of the companies that were assessed in the last year report, they are a testament actually to this to the success of track. So their share volume that was traded on the Colombo stock market became the fourth highest among all the companies on the stock exchange. And most investors who had bought these shares were seemingly foreign investors. And the company mentioned that they hadn't done anything different at that point, and the only reason for this increase could have been their high score on the track assessment. So in the context of the track assessment, it's also important to address the issue of private sector corruption, where companies can actually often be silent colluders or even enablers of much larger public sector corruption. So the newly enacted Anti-Corruption Act, for the first time in Sri Lanka, now recognizes bribery in the private sector as a punishable offence. So this is further strengthened by the revised listing rules of the Colombo Stock Exchange, under which listed companies will be required to adopt and maintain whistleblower policies and anti-bribery and corruption policies and make disclosures on these said policies. So assessing corporate transparency through track assessments will not necessarily address all the grand corruption cases in Sri Lanka, as TISL also conducts different initiatives such as research, We also engage in litigation. We conduct other programs and initiatives. We also offer trainings on anti-bribery and corruption to companies. And all this is done in order to raise further awareness to address the issue of corruption. We also intend to create business integrity clubs, which will provide companies with an open platform to discuss issues related to corruption in the private sector. And we cordially invite all companies, all interested companies, to get in touch with us to join the business integrity clubs. But nevertheless, corporate transparency is one step companies can take to reduce the risk of corruption within their organizations. They must commit to abide by the new regulatory standards that have been introduced, while also self-regulating to maintain higher standards than even the minimum requirement. As such, periodic reviewing of corporate disclosures serves as a strong motivator for companies to regularly review their policies and improve their disclosures. So I would like to conclude by thanking all the companies that engaged with TISL during the assessment process. And also I would like to thank the independent consultant who carried out this assessment on TISL's behalf. And also once again to the companies for providing feedback on the scores that they have obtained. So although at present this is still the listing rules coming to effect in October this year, still since there is no mandatory requirement for them to disclose all the information that we look at and assess in this report, it's actually very encouraging to see that several companies are voluntarily disclosing all this information. So the report provides detailed recommendations for companies. There's a separate section on recommendations to companies on how to improve their disclosure practices, which would lead to better scores as well. And I encourage companies to use the track report as guidance to improve their corporate disclosures. Thank you very much.